Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dynamics Corner, the podcast where we dive deep into all things Microsoft Dynamics. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting your journey into the world of Dynamics 365, this is your place to gain insights, learn new tricks, and hear from industry experts. Development tools are the compass and map in the uncharted territory of software creation, guiding developers through the complexities with ease and efficiency, turning ambitious ideas into tangible realities. I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode is recorded on April 4th, 2024. Kris. My mind is blown. It's always blown. But today...
It's good to see stories like this, man. Just to, especially knowing this, how it got to be where it is, which is fascinating.
Today, we had the privilege and the honor to speak with someone that created a tool that I use daily that has saved me, or maybe not based upon the conversation, a lot of time in completing tasks and getting things done. I think actually it probably took away a lot of the monotony of some of the things that I've done, but it's a great tool that I use daily, and each day I usually find something new about it. Today, we had the opportunity to speak with AZ, the creator of the AZ ALDEV Tool extension for Visual Studio Code. Boom. All right. Kris, look who stopped by.
Whoa.
Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Yes, I'm good. And you?
Great.
Not too
looking
bad.
forward to speaking with you.
Yeah, finally.
And I have to tell you, you just saved me, I don't want to say countless, but a large number of hours while I was working on an upgrade. I just have to tell you that. That was just in one instance, but over the last several years, I can't tell you how many hours you've saved me. So I have to thank you personally.
That's nice to hear that what I'm doing is helping people with their daily job. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Yes,
And you're doing a great job with it.
Give people a tool. Yeah, that was something that the main goal was partially it was to give people a tool, but also I like to play with the software. I like to write software, but I have this feeling that when I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm playing and I don't see the purpose of the thing that I'm doing, then I have this feeling of lost time. It's not 100% true, because even if you're doing something that you throw away quickly, you still learn something. You're still experimenting, but at some point, I had that missing feeling that I made so many experiments, and I learned something doing them. But it would be good to try to, if I'm doing some experiments, if I want to write something, it would be good to have a goal, to have the idea that I want to achieve something. If not, then, I would like to learn, for example, sometimes you might have this idea, I want to learn this new technology, but I have absolutely no idea what kind of example of the software that I write would be something that makes sense. That I can learn something on building something that is maybe close to something being real. Yeah,
like a use case. I think finding a use case
Yeah,
when you're
some
building.
use case.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a purpose and a goal to shoot for, and then learn along the way, and then have something tangible have some tangible output that you can use going forward, or even if you learn something, to be able to apply what you learn. But before we jump into it and talk about this a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind for those that may not know, which I'm sure there aren't many that don't know, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I have a complex name for many people on this planet. So my name is Andrzej Zwierzchowski, which is hard to pronounce to many people, and it's always a good starting point for a discussion when I'm somewhere. People start asking how to pronounce that. So because I currently living in UK, then here everybody just calls me AZ because that's something that they can't pronounce. Yeah, Andrzej Zwierzchowski is not the one. That is easy to say. So I'm a developer. I mean, currently I'm more responsible for our development standard, this kind of stuff at my current work. But I have a developer background. I'm still developing things, and I've been doing that since I'm working since year 2000, and with Dynamics Nav, I started working for Dynamics Nav partner in 2004, so long time ago. But I was also working with .NET. I was a .NET developer. I'm still jumping. Yeah, sometimes doing something in .NET, sometimes doing something in AL. It gives you a bigger, more experience. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm constantly working somewhere around development, and as part of this experiments after work or learning after work, I created these VS Code extensions for AL developers, which I first incorrectly name AL Code Outline because it was just outline display in the corner. And then I renamed it to AZ ALDEV Tools because I started adding more and more stuff, and then it was no longer really outline. Outline is something that is still there, but it's just tiny.
So you're the author of the AZ ALDEV tool.
That's how I name it.
AZ ALDEV Tools. That's what the AZ means for
those
anyone
who don't
that didn't know. For anyone
it
that
was
doesn't know.
just because they called me this way. Yeah, I said, okay, let's use it. I'm very bad in finding names, so.
But it sticks. I think it's a good name. The AZ ALDEV Tools is a good name that sticks. And I have a lot of questions for you about that because I think it is a great tool. That the library of functions that I guess you could call commands that you can do within the Visual Studio Code extension is growing. And even after using it for several years, I think I find a new one every now and then.
There are hidden tools there, and you don't know, and that's fine.
Yes. So it's saved me, and I know many others because I recommend that extension. If someone were to ask me which extension should I use to be as I'm working with AL development, we always need to say that the AL extension is mandatory, but I also throw USs in there as well because of what it can do and the time that it can save a developer with authoring their code, which is great.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas. Yeah, make something simple. Also, another one was when I was observing people when they were switching from CAL to AL, and in CAL they were used to wizards, they were used to more visual approach to designing, and then you see that there is this period of switching. So I wanted also to give those people some of those visual tools, not all of them, because now we're working with files, and a lot of benefits that we have from having everything just in a text file. That was something that I was missing in old Dynamics Nav editors. So the best way would be to just to have the best things from both worlds. And I just wanted to first add something that people know, and people know how to quickly create something.
So you're creating something that helps people kind of familiarize themselves as they transition to yeah.
And also there is one interesting thing, because people are telling you snippets. People are sometimes telling, oh, why do some people, some people see that other people are not using snippets and they're complaining, why are you not using snippets? Snippets are there. You should be using it. And yeah, snippets are great. You should be using them. But I found one problem with myself with snippets. Because years and years of working in those advanced editors, so not in old Cal, but in a big Visual Studio, it has IntelliSense. It has this drop down that suggests you functions, and it's great, but it did very big harm to my abilities to type. I start typing and then I press wrong key,
Yes.
and then if you have a snippet, you press wrong key and you're just jumping out of this flow of tabbing through the placeholders. So I found that snippets were frustrating, not because of the snippets, but because of me, because I was pressing wrong key and then, yeah.
I completely relate to that. And also now with GitHub Copilot, I'm finding that same problem sometimes with the suggestions. And thankfully, they're right most of the time, but I run into that same challenge. And I like your tool because, the little light bulb shows up. I either can do it from the command. I can, just run the command itself to run to fix for a particular file or for the entire project. But also, I like the ability to just right click and say, sort variables, remove unused variables, like all the great things that you can do as part of your coding process when you put it through there. With the Visual Studio Code extensions and with the AZ ALDEV Tools, which formerly the outline, what made you start to go through the process of doing this? Because it is a different language that you have to use to create the extension. And how does one go about doing it?
So it wasn't really something new, because as I said, I'm also doing .NET development, and I always like the idea of being able to extend your development environment. So it wasn't really new idea. It was just, now I finally can do it. Because in the past, I was playing those were those type of experiments that I was mentioning earlier that just went to the bin. And I never really used them anywhere. But I was experimenting with C# and with big Visual Studio, building some tools using this Visual Studio extensibility. It was framework or just libraries, trying to add something to the editor or trying to build custom code generators. So it was a lot of fun. I had a solution where you create XML file, and in XML file, you just define quickly in XML, that's the table structure that I would like to have. And then when you save this file, it was generating behind a big C# file with a few classes and with a lot of code behind that was, without that, you would be just typing this code again and again and again. So I was doing those experiments in the past. And then I did another one later when it was, I think that was Navision 2016, 17. I don't remember which version it was, when Microsoft switched the code editor inside from this old ugly one to the newer one that was based on code editor from Visual Studio. So suddenly you had those drop downs, those IntelliSense. Yeah, I'm talking about this one when you're still in Cal, you still has those gray bars separating your procedures, but everything between, this whole text part is actually a text editor, a code editor that you have also in big Visual Studio.
It was pretty ugly. It was pretty ugly. It was ugly before, as you had mentioned, but when they switched it, it became pretty, but still ugly.
Still ugly, but what interesting happened there was that together with those libraries, because I just took those libraries, came the extensibility of Visual Studio. And then I made experiment. I created a DLL that you just have to drop to one of the folders inside your RTC folders. Yeah, there where you have this code editor, old code editor, yeah, for nav. There in one of the subfolders, just drop this DLL, and suddenly you have snippets. You have drop downs with some such code suggestions, yeah, because once you put this DLL there, this editor will look in this folder and load any DLLs that have implement those extensibility classes with properties. So even in Cal, even in Dynamics Nav, you can still extend the editor, not as much as you can now, yeah, but still, only in the code, but still you can get, for example, information about what local variables you have in the procedure in which you are currently in a cursor is, or what globals you have, yeah? So in old Cal code unit, you can get that information. You can get a list of fields. And I had a button there that, you could just select two variables that was record variables, and then just expand them to assign fields with the same names. So kind of transfer field, but expanded automatically. So you can still do that, yeah. So that was first experiment, and then when Microsoft just switched to VS Code, it was great. Now finally I can make something that makes sense. But it was just extension of those many experiments that I was doing during the years with Visual Studio. Yeah, every time I was installing Visual Studio again and again on my new laptop, when I got a new laptop at work, I was always ticking, and install Visual Studio extensibility, because maybe I will again play with it. And now we have this one.
So now in VS Code we have the full. It's fully open, and as you had mentioned, with the separate files, it becomes a little bit easier to work with in extending the editor to be able to work with the AL files. With writing an extension for Visual Studio Code, what language is it written in? How do you develop an extension?
So when you're writing extension for VS Code, because VS Code is JavaScript solution, JavaScript, TypeScript. So this is the language that you should be using. Yeah? You can use JavaScript, or you can use TypeScript, which during the compilation you just converted to JavaScript. And then you have full power of those libraries. So you have Node.js, and you have all the libraries that you can just install and use in your code. So that's the main thing. But the compiler, the Business Central compiler, AL compiler, is written in C#. This is .NET solution. Yeah? Business Central is .NET solution. We may not have access to .NET in the cloud, but whole technology, everything behind is .NET. And all those code transformations, command, all complex, really code managing stuff. This is something that I have in C# because I'm reusing compiler libraries. And then to really write it, there is a JSON RPC library. I think that's from Microsoft. They're using it also for the language protocol. And the whole idea, and the same happens with Microsoft extension, is that you're running a basically command line, just text-based, just command line application, and which is started from your JavaScript or TypeScript extension, and it uses this JSON RPC library to really serialize your JSON data into a text, and it writes it to the input stream of this text file. So it redirects input and output from screen and keyboard when it starts it to two streams inside just that TypeScript extension. And we're just writing it, and your command line tools think that it comes from the keyboard, yeah, from the standard input. And then it writes output, which is a JSON, and you get it at the other side, just back into the object on this TypeScript side, and then you can do whatever you want. So this is the type. You have this communication somewhat, and then big part of it is a .NET application and whole the UI commands, handling it inside VS Code. This is TypeScript. And then there are some JavaScript also parts, because I have some custom views, which are just HTML page with JavaScript inside. So there are 3 elements here. 2 of them sits in the TypeScript on the TypeScript side. Yeah, so it's HTML, JavaScript, and TypeScript. And then there is completely separate big .NET project with a few big solution with a few projects inside that is really using those compiler libraries and a lot of custom also classes to process, to analyze the AL code. So it was growing. Yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
No, it is. It's getting bigger and bigger. And I see all these extensions, and I read briefly over the years how to create a new one, but it wasn't something that, again, to go back to your comment about time, wasn't something that I had the time or wanted to spend the time to learn, because my efforts were focused, more on the application and development of the application, among other things. But seeing these tools or using these tools, I always had that curiosity of, what does it take to write the tool? So your tool, in essence, will read the files, bring it in, and then you can process it, and then act, with the command of your tools, simulate it like it was typed or updated in the editor itself.
It's a protocol, the communication protocol, but really those are just libraries. Yeah, you have libraries for it, a standard library for it on the .NET side, standard library for it on the TypeScript side. So really, it's like calling a service. Yeah, you just call a function, it sends it to other way and brings it back, and other side is the same. You just build your classes that will listen to some certain type of message. Yeah, so but everything happens. This transfer of the console is just a technical part. Yeah, what really it's like you're writing some even a website, a web application. You have the server side, which is this .NET executable, and you have this kind of client side, which is the TypeScript in VS Code, and it just talks between each other.
You have a lot of commands in this extension, and what interests me, and some of the things I wanted to talk with you about, how do you differentiate the different parts of the code? Because, for example, you have, I forget the errors off the top of my head in the conversation, but where we're changing the case of the reserved words, adding parentheses to the reserved words. Another big one is the adding of the rec for the variables, the non-implicit with. You have a number of those tools that you're using.
Yeah.
How do you manage and keep track of that and know that it's adjusting the correct variable or the correct word or whatever's on the page? To me, it sounds very complicated to know that these are the reserved words. I had to put the parentheses here, but not when it's here.
Okay, so this is all done thanks to Microsoft and thanks to these libraries. Yeah, so that's something that they did good job. Really, really good job with those libraries. So what has happened is that long time ago, again, I know, start saying like some grandfather telling stories. Some long time ago, Microsoft was working on improving or redesigning the C# and Visual Basic compilers whole platform, and they came up with the idea of project. They call it Roslyn, and Roslyn is a compiler and set of libraries to analyze your code and to modify your code. And this is for C# and for Visual Basic, and it's open source. You can go and take this source codes, and it has a kind of 3 layers. You have this lower layer, which is parsing the code and compiling. Then you have a higher layer where you have something called it workspace, where that's a place where you have the projects, so you can have solution with projects and project with files. And then on top of it is the integration with big Visual Studio. So you have those 3 layers. And what is interesting that top layer has some data structures that came from requirement from this Visual Studio extensibility libraries. So this is something that decides, okay, that's how what kind of fields you have in this class, and then it goes down to the lower layer. And I said it's a big thing. And what Microsoft did with AL, they took those 2 lower layers, the one when you have the parsing, analyzing code, and the higher one, the middle one with workspaces, and they copy all this code and they made their own version with which parses and handles AL. But a lot of those classes are just really one-to-one, just taken. Yeah? They just change the namespace and even the name of the class stayed. They never did the top one because they are not integrating with big Visual Studio. They are integrating with VS Code, so they only did the 2 lower ones. And my first experiment years ago, before I started doing those tools, was, okay, let's take a source code of the big Roslyn and take that top layer and try to start, bringing classes. Maybe I will integrate AL with big Visual Studio. Something was working, but yes, but that's how I learned it. Yeah. So those classes that they are giving us in those lower libraries, they allow you to parse the code and they allow you to modify the code. So you're getting whole structure of your code as just a structure of objects, whole tree. And then there are methods that the classes that you can override, writing your own class, inherit from those classes, which allows you to rewrite the syntax. And they are very, it's very easy because you have a class which has a lot of methods like on procedure declaration, or on visit, they call it on visit procedure declaration, visit repeat until block, visit variable declaration, visit table field, visit property value. So, they have a method visit, and then it goes down to every element of the syntax tree and calls this visit something. And it returns all these methods just to return, by default, they return the same node that we pass to it. But you can return something different and then it will replace it. So really, if you want to add caption to the fields, to the table fields, what you really need to do, you create your own class, call it, let's say, caption syntax rewriter, which inherits from the standard Microsoft syntax rewriter. And then you override one method on visit table field. And inside, you check if this field has caption or not. It doesn't have the caption. So you create a new field and you just add the caption and return that new version of the field. And it will replace it. Everything will be done. So obviously you need to take a look at the structure, what kind of type it is, which on visit you have to override. But really, for every single command, you just create a new rewriter, override that single part, and then you have a library of just rewriters with just basically those commands. Yeah.
That's very cool.
So that is great. So you're basically working with objects that Microsoft provides to you, and you're sending back overrides of those objects with whatever changes, if you're adding, as you'd mentioned, the captions, or if you're rewriting the text that needs to be output.
So I'm not parsing it. I don't have. Yeah, they are giving me everything.
That's what I was wondering, is if you had to parse all that, because as
that would be nightmare.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was wondering how you did that, but now it's still a little bit of work to do that. But a lot of that parsing, what I call, I don't want to say the hard part, because it is all challenging. I don't want to take away from the efforts. You already have the objects that you're working with, and from the AL language.
The parser is tricky. Parser is very tricky. People are saying, I write the parser, it's fine. But the key here is that will your parser survive if your code does not compile? I mean, if you have, unfinished code. This is something that is the most tricky part, in the parser. If you have correct file, good. But, imagine you have 20 procedures, and you're writing in the middle. When you're writing you're in VS Code, you're writing your code. You have those 20 procedures, and you are inside the fifth one, and you're typing. So because you're typing this code, okay, everything is fine for the parser to the place where you're typing. At this moment, it's syntax, wrong syntax, and sorry. But when you're typing, you would like to have this IntelliSense that will still suggest you methods that are below. So this parser needs to recover from this broken code that you type in the middle, go back to the state that, it's still fine, and still recognize those methods below, because it needs you to suggest them for the dropdown. So this is the most complex part, correctly recover from broken code.
That's, see, that was a lot to this, and I just wanted to do a Hello World VS Code extension, but I think I'm going to leave that to
Hello World is easy. It's a few lines of code, and you can do it. And
I'll have to try. I don't know if I want to get into that just yet, but maybe I will. The depth of the AZ ALDEV tools, and I can't thank you enough for the amount of time that you saved me, because it allows me to even get consistent with formatting, even the sorting of the procedures, the sorting of the variables, all of those methods and the triggers, all of those commands that you have help towards standardization. You mentioned you work with standards there, so that's helpful. Is that where you got? Is that where you come up with the ideas for some of these commands that you add to the library?
So some of the commands were coming from requests coming from people.
Oh,
yeah. It's not like, not all of them were my ideas. Standards are important, but also you should not tie people's hands having too strict standards. So, if all of those ideas were mine, I would say that I would be a very bad person to work with, because if I would care about all that stuff, just nobody would want to be near me. Yeah, this is the collection of ideas, people from different companies, different countries. You want to sort your procedures? Fine, sort them. You don't want to sort them? That's okay, because you prefer to group them by functionality, by area, by something. Yeah. So all this sorting, you need it. Fine, you don't need it because you prefer to, I don't know, have procedures by the areas, not by name. It's okay.
So some of the functionality that you have within the extension is by request. Is it possible to extend your extension? Because you use the sorting as an example. I think your default sort is to sort it by procedure name and type. And what I mean by type, it's local or public.
There are a few options that you can choose how you want to sort them. So it's a problem to extend it if you would like to build your own extension that extend this one, because I'm not providing any extensibility points to this .NET application. But that's what really, if you would like to plug it in, then that part would be probably the best option would be to provide, and then if you could just drop a DLL somewhere and then it would recognize it. That probably would be the best way of doing that. You can what is possible is to create your own extension, and my extension, when it exposes its whole TypeScript, all objects that are in the TypeScript on the TypeScript side. So it's possible to use them. I don't think that it was the best idea, because it basically exposes everything that is there. So people are using it, people are extending it. Yeah. David Fieldhoff with his extension is using some functions from those classes. Waldemar Brakowski with his extension is also, I think that, he was also using it. So I don't know how many other people are just using it. It's just, there is a bit of responsibility coming with, because I expose everything, then refactoring this code is a problem, because I don't know, maybe they are using this method. Yeah, I never expected to anybody just call this thing, because that's internal for myself, but because I never build any API that exposes on the things that I want to expose, then every time I change something there, I have no idea how many how many people will have now broken VS Code extensions they own. Yeah.
That's what we call an AL, a breaking change. No, it's it's that's what the first thing I thought of with that.
But you can get this thing, and then you can use it, for example, to give you the information about your current file. Yeah. So instead of you parsing it, you can get this syntax tree that C# is building, that Microsoft libraries are building. So this structure, you can get it, and then you can just analyze it and do something. Like, okay, my cursor is now on the procedure, in the beginning of the procedure, or on the variable, and this variable name is this one, and this is the data type, because you can get it, calling those methods. So then you can write your own action that will do something with this code.
Wow.
But
See, now
side only.
This is something I want to get into. I wish I had something. I have to experiment. After a few things I'm working on now, and when that comes, maybe I will have to reach out to you and say, I want to do the hello world just to start.
You can also take a look at the David Fieldhoff extension. There's his code actions.
Yeah.
Okay. He's calling those methods from my extension to get information about the syntax tree. So he doesn't have to parse it himself.
I think we'll have to take a look at that one after this to see what to do. How long ago did you write this extension? I know you said you had mentioned you started writing in 2017 when they changed the editor, or I think it was about 2017.
That was old, yeah. So first, obviously, I write something completely different for Cal. I was like, I can do it. It was just a stupid experiment. I was just looking at the folder inside the client, just, what's that? This library is from Visual Studio. I was extending it in Visual Studio. Let's try it. So that was this experiment, which, it works. And this source code of this is on my GitHub. There is somewhere Cal something. It's there. It's C# and you can just compile it, drop it, and it works. And then when Business Central was released, I was learning, trying to learn Roslyn, and I was trying to add this missing part and see how far I can go to integrate it with big Visual Studio. And I reached some point where, for example, the IntelliSense was nicely working. I have nice syntax coloring in Visual Studio, and those drop downs with code suggestions. But I just dropped it, and then I tried to do something with VS Code. Yeah, but I don't even remember.
It's fascinating that hearing the stories of tools that people use and how it all got started. And it sounds like you just did it out of curiosity. And it's like, hey, let's just try it. And then it's now being used everywhere.
It was maybe finally this time I will do something that, somebody will be using. Because during the years I was doing different things just, after hours, but they were usually ending somewhere never used, while it was, sometimes it was, I don't know, a lot of work, I had the label designer that I was trying to prime. Well, maybe I'll integrate it with Dynamics Nav. Yeah, so it was the visual one when you can design your label with texts, with barcodes, and then you are able to from Dynamics Nav will be able to pass the parameters to this label and then print this label. It just ended nowhere really. It was just an experiment, but it took a lot of time also to write it, to have, saving those files, reading those labels, accessing the database, and so on. So this time I wanted something that won't be lost.
I don't think this will be lost. You wanted something that somebody's using. Of all the developers that I know, I don't think I know anyone that's not using it. So you do have quite a bit of members of the community using it. To go back to some points that you noted in that explanation about taking time, how long or how much time do you think you put into creating this extension?
I have no idea.
No.
It probably will be months, but I don't know. It's just sometimes just sitting and doing it. Just I need a time where I can focus on it, because if not, then it's very hard to be sure that I'm not producing something that will be broken. Yeah, there is this responsibility. If I sit on it, let's say during the weekend, and then I deploy it, and then Monday morning I'm going to work, and I will be at work doing something that I'm paid for, and then if I manage during the weekend to break every partner out there, then that's not good. Yeah, so so it's important that there is a longer period of time when I can sit, really switch my mind to it, do those few features fixes, and then close them and send them. It's not something
that is important. I think you hit a key point of development that some may not understand, the importance of focusing and getting your mind to be able to be involved or submerged in something so that you can still have the good flow and the thought of how everything works together. So you can't just, task switch or jump between them. You had mentioned that.
Think about, yeah.
You had mentioned that some of the functionality that's within the extension was suggestions by members of the community. If someone were to want something to be added or a request that something could be added, how would they go through that process?
And I had a few pull requests, so people create pull requests and then just took a look at it and just accepted it. Okay, good, yeah, nice that somebody contributes to it. So then I include them into the extension. Some of them were very interesting because somebody create pull request with something that I wanted to have, but when I was thinking about it, trying to imagine all the cases, it was that will be hard. The most common part will be fine, but there are some special cases that this will be hard. And then I got pull request with it, and it was implementing only that most common part. Yeah, so I accepted it because it's really really good that somebody just add something. But then I had a lot of. But then I released that, and obviously, what happened. Yeah, people started asking about those border cases that I knew that it would be a problem, and that's why I was very reluctant to implement the feature, even if I wanted it. But now, because somebody spent time, and that's I accepted it because that's fantastic that somebody wants to collaborate, wants to also include something. But then it was okay, and now I have to do this border case that I did not want to do.
So you created work for yourself there by doing that. So the extension,
it's good.
No, that it is good, and everyone gets to reap the benefit of the pull request that somebody contributed in the enhancement that you made. Do you know which one that was? Do you recall?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay, so the extension is available on GitHub. The code is public on GitHub. We'll have to put a link in the show notes to your GitHub account so that we can have a reference to that code. I'll have to take a look at that again to see how to do all this stuff. We'll challenge Kris to write something or to make a pull request for the extension.
I had part of my solution in TypeScript. I was getting those pull requests also in TypeScript. But then I realized that I was aware, at the time that not everything really can be done on a TypeScript side. Those more complex cases really require proper parser. You cannot just use regular expression to go through your code. There are some special cases where you just cannot really detect them. So those are these border cases. So then I started moving everything to those syntax rewriters in C#, because that's really the only place where you can properly go through this code and cover all those special cases. And I'm still getting requests or bug reports coming from even if it happens on the C# side. Because one thing that is there is just those syntax writers, but there's also a more complex second more complex structures that you can get. Yeah, you can compile your code and then inside, and then got the second level of the structure that really describes your whole solution, not just a single file. So you know exactly that those are the parameters of the procedure. You know what data type they are. You can go to that data type, and then you can check really, like for example, if the parameter is the table, then you can go into this table definition and check what type of kind of fields they have. Yeah, if you overload your methods in your code, then you have 3 methods with the same name but different list of parameters. Then this more complex structure can tell you which really one of those functions you are calling, and you can really get full information. And this is what is used for those more complex commands like remove with or fix the case of the names, because then I need to compile everything to really know that, okay, this variable is of this data type, and this data type name really is this one, and not the one that you type. So I can fix casing. I can check, okay, this is a keyword, and the compiler will tell me, and that's how proper casing of this keyword is. Or like, you have just a text inside your procedure, and this is a variable, and this is the name of the variable, so you can get information, and this is the declaration, so okay, so it is named this way and not this way. Yeah, so you can fix the casing.
Yeah, that sounds scary to me, because I've done a few, remove unused variables for the entire project, and sometimes I do have to admit I try to just do it for the active file sometimes, but I have done it at the project, and you cross your fingers hoping that they all go, because I sit back and I think, like, how can you find all of those? And that they use, and oftentimes it's quick.
This is compiler, yeah. It gives you this information. Okay, this thing is declared here, or you can check if you have the variable declaration. You can check what it is, and if you have 0 places where it is, okay, let's get rid of it.
So the compiler helps you with that.
Yes,
see,
it gives you full information.
I have to stop. Now I'm interested in looking at some of that, because it was a mystery to me on how this was all done, and now that I know that you work with a compiler.
You don't have documentation for the AL libraries, but because this is basically copy of Roslyn, with this part which defines the language is different. So you have different type of syntax nodes. Yeah, like in C# you have a class syntax. You don't have class syntax here, but you have code unit, table. Yeah, so you have different classes. But the rest on top of it's basically the same. So. And Roslyn documentation is big. You have examples, you have example of code, whole articles about different concepts, about parsing, about analyzing the code, about changing the code, about compiling the code, and then doing this more advanced analysis, writing code analyzers. Everything came from C#. Yeah, because Microsoft idea for C# was to create libraries that could allow people to write their own tools that can analyze the code and display some information in Visual Studio, or allow people to transform this C# code in Visual Studio. And we just inherited all of this because those libraries were copied. So documentation is there. It's just for C#.
I learned something about that too. Not only did I learn about the history of the AZ ALDEV Tools, what it was to develop it, I learned a little bit about the AL compiler too, of its origin. You talk about with that project of Roslyn. That is something I'll have to look into.
It's huge, and really, if you look at it, but with AI rising, then that's the way it will go, because now you just train AI and And it's not, you cannot trust it. Yeah, you cannot completely trust it because it's AI and it just learn it. So you have those two ways of doing it. Yeah, one is if you know exactly what you want to do and you want to be accurate, then you have the compiler libraries. But if you're typing and just with your it looks fine, then GitHub Copilot is better. Yeah, it's like generating images. You can use some, you can draw in 3D some pictures and then render them and spend half a evening waiting until it will be rendered on your very powerful graphic cards, or you can just use AI and describe what you want to see, and that also looks fine.
Yeah, that's
It's just not so accurate. Yeah, you get a few versions of it. Just
Get you a good starting point.
Yes, that's the AI, as I keep saying, AI is a tool that we use, and you just have to use the tool as appropriate. I mean, it's some cases where it's very good, some cases where it may not be the best tool to use, in some cases it may be good enough to get you started to do some of the framework or the base work, and then you can expand upon it. So I think that's one big message to keep saying with AI. AI isn't going to solve all of the problems and every problem, but it may be, or it may not even be relevant for a particular problem, but at somewhere it could be just a tool that you use, and just where do you apply that tool is the important piece.
It's a tool, but it will be getting better and better, and
Right.
we will see where it will go. Yeah.
I see it getting better and better regularly. I mean, even using GitHub Copilot with AL, I am impressed at what it can do with the syntax now for creating things for me. I mean, there's the productivity I've gained from using it is amazing, and
yes,
in a lot of cases, it's great. And again, sometimes it's not for the complex stuff, but a lot of that, small, what I call rudimentary stuff, it's usually pretty good with, when you're adding fields to pages, or you're adding new fields to tables, then you're putting them on pages. I mean, there's a number of things, even actions, it's quite helpful with.
I found very interesting thing recently. It was TypeScript. Yeah, I was writing some extensions, our internal component extension, and that just helps people to do something with source control. And I wanted to automate some process. And I wanted to use, so obviously it was the TypeScript and JavaScript code. So as you can imagine, the knowledge base behind it is much bigger than the one for AL. Yeah? And I wanted to do something complex with using the official GitHub library for JavaScript for accessing GitHub APIs. And the only information that I found was on the GitHub repository. There was a discussion. People were asking about this functionality, exactly this functionality, to be added to the libraries because some different API had it, and also it was available in the UI. And it was a long discussion, and at the end, the whole issue was closed, and the information was, yes, we did it. That's it. How, where, nobody knows. In documentation, nothing. The only information that I was able to find was just this discussion request from people to, we want it, and the response, we did it. And I had no idea. Yeah, no able to find it. So what I did, I open not even GitHub Copilot. I opened the Copilot in Windows. The one that you have with Bing. Yeah, the one that just you have on the side of your Windows. Yeah, this new icon that you have on the this preview icon that you have on the toolbar. Yeah, just open it and just type it. Could you write me a bit of TypeScript code that will do this thing using this GitHub library? And you know what? It did.
Wow.
I just took his code and pasted, and it worked.
Even the built-in Copilot on Windows?
Yes, but it shows very interesting problem that we have in our industry. It's how we approach the documentation. Because what really happened, and what I was doing manually some time ago, is that many times going to documentation may not make any sense because it may not be there. The only way of really finding how to do something is go to GitHub and search for it.
Yes.
Because maybe somebody did it in the open source repository, and maybe this code will be there. And because GitHub Copilot and this Copilot Windows is trained also on the source code, on the open source code, then it looks like it found it and it learned on it. But many times the only place is really just hoping that somebody already implemented it and finding it in the open source repositories, searching for it. So, but it's, if you think about it, it's like, it's a bit bad that, you don't have those documentations just really complete.
Yeah, it's scary in a sense to see where this will all go. I mean, I think we'll all have to change our thought process to change the way we think. I think we'll evolve in development a certain way. Even if you look at AL with what they added in the latest release with the Copilot library, things will only get better to be able to work with Copilot within the application. Then now also with the development as well. Pretty soon I'll be able to spend a lot of time at the beach.
No. I mean, as a homeless person, yes, because AI will take over.
You just have to learn to be a prompt engineer, which is a thing now, right? Prompt engineer.
Yeah, still it would be good to understand what you get from the output.
Yeah. You do have to be able to analyze the output. I think the efficiency that you gain with some of the small stuff is what's valuable.
But is it changing anything for you?
Is it changing anything for me?
Yes.
AI?
Yes.
More of a time savings at this point.
Are you sure?
Yes.
But I'm still working probably the same amount of time.
I'm working the same amount of time, but I think my output has improved. And some other things that AI has done for me, that's from the coding point of view.
Yeah, but at the end, you're still working the same amount of time. You're just doing more tasks at the same time.
Yes.
You're ending up with the same amount of money, so it's really not changing anything here.
If you look at it from that point of view, you are correct. My output has increased, but my time has remained the same, as well as the revenue. Therefore, it hasn't done anything for me. It's done things for other people.
Yeah. So I was thinking about it, because I remember people, even 100 years ago, telling about those, automation at jobs and something that, in the future we will be working 2 hours, not 8, or not. Not really. We're just working the same amount of time because
we just do more.
Because you're paying per hour, so
that's
not per output. So
that is true.
Yeah. Well, maybe that will change too. But what AI has also helped.
So.
Yeah, I think it does. Anything that I will say that AI has helped me with has just made things a little more efficient for me. But duration of me working hasn't changed. So
yeah.
It hasn't done anything
about it. I was thinking I was trying to really understand, because that argument that you can be faster, it's not really true because you're still spending this time. What is changing is that because you are faster, then that single thing that you did was faster, so it's cheaper for somebody that will get it.
Yes.
Which means that from your point of view, the thing that other people can produce could be cheaper. So then it could maybe, you can then afford more things. You still work the same amount of time.
You can spend more time documenting now because this is something that people don't do.
So it will drive the cost of software development down. Because
everything,
we're talking about in this case, but yes, everything, the cost will have to go down because of the speed at which you could do things. Also, but people just want to get paid more for those tasks, the ones that do it. So I don't know if it will drive the cost down.
There will always be somebody that will say that, you know what, I need that's the amount of money that I need to survive and to pay my all bills. So that's how I would charge for this job. And then it goes down. Yeah.
It's an interesting concept and a great discussion to have. We need to have some more of these discussions about where AI will take us and where has it taken us. I think as it matures and
it's like with electronics. Yeah, all the stuff in the past were big, expensive, and it was taking time to produce. And now you have cheap phone that can do a lot of things. Yeah, because it's mass produced and it's cheap to produce. So that's where I was going. That you will be able to afford more things that now you cannot get because it's expensive. But with AI, some things may get to the point that suddenly you will be able to use some interesting technology.
You can get more solution. Yeah, I mean, it'd be mass produced.
But is there a point where AI will make us ineffective? Because if we're using information, use information, for example. We're using something generated by AI that it learned based on information that was created. If AI is creating the information and then learning upon the information that it's created, this is one of those questions. Is there a point where it will not progress forward?
You would have to ask Google what they did, because I remember many years ago reading an article about Google Translate. And I remember from this article, it was a few years ago. Yeah, what they wrote there was that the Google Translate was based on, if I remember correctly, it was based on basically the search engine, because companies were producing the multiple language versions of their website. So the search engine was able to learn translation based on taking, English and maybe French version of the same website, and by just looking at it, the AI was able to learn how to translate one language to another, and the results were amazing because it has great examples made by people. And then sometime later, people started using Google Translate to translate their website, and Google Translate was learning on this one. And Google realized that the quality of translations were going down. I don't know what they did. I was not looking what the solution they found, but this is the real problem that Google already had years ago. So it's not something that you just curious and thinking it will maybe it will happen. It happened. We know about it, and Google saw it.
It'd be interesting to see where that goes, because that's something I think of with. I see more and more content generated by individuals, and you can tell that it's not fully.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious to see if it flattens out.
I saw some article a few days ago when somebody was comparing human creativity with AI creativity. So they used Google search to find pictures of elephant. And then they use AI, draw an elephant. And the search results were all different types of pictures. But the ones generated by AI, they were very, very similar. Very similar colors, very similar environment behind this elephant, the shapes. So you can see that it was not very creative. Probably, at this moment, you can hope that creativity would be something that you can use to try to win with AI. For simple tasks that somebody already solved, AI is great. With creativity, we will see. Yeah,
that's an important point to remember. I think that you hit something that's important, and that's the creativity. Because if something is a solution or somebody already has it, AI can be a tool to keep that, but we still need the creativity to keep moving us forward. So there's going to have to be a balance of moving forward and not spending time on something that's already happened in the past. AI can handle that for us, but we still need to make sure that we focus and drive for moving forward.
But I don't know what creativity is here. Because, again, I remember some article that I saw. This one was probably 15 years ago. And it was nothing with IT. It was during the summer period. Some article about it was interview with the burglar, and he said that because it was people going holidays and obviously hiding stuff in their homes. And what he said is that if you know what kind of person it is, what kind of job this person is doing, you know where they hide their stuff. Because if somebody likes to play with something, then probably maybe under the machine, they will open it, put it here or something, and knowing what kind of, if there's somebody that you just like, just those, all that, building old stuff at home, fixing old stuff, then there will be special places where they will hide it. And it's something that is repeatable. That people think that they are creative hiding it, but in reality they are not. Yeah.
It's a
so that's why I think, what the creativity is here.
False sense of creation.
You may think that you are creative, but you know what? Everybody has the same idea, and probably that idea somebody already had, and multiple people had. So AI, if AI sees it has a big database of patterns, your creative pattern is already there multiple times.
Creativity is like an inspiration of something else.
Wow, that's another habit, human habits or human thoughts on how you put that.
You think that you're creative, but
no,
not really. You have your own knowledge base, and you're getting the ideas from your knowledge base.
Oh, we could talk about a lot of this stuff for a long time, because that is another concept of, as far as your mind and what you think, versus what you've learned and how your mind is predicting. I was reading something on it, how your mind is predicting in the future to keep you safe based upon things that you've learned in the past. Yeah. So it's like you have that when you're walking through the woods or walking somewhere, you have the foundation of what you know and what you've learned to try to predict the future, predict what could happen or will happen, so that you'll stay safe and alert. This is all a lot. We have to continue that conversation on
the philosophy of AI.
The philosophy of where we're going, AI, and how we think.
Yeah, it's a big, big pattern recognition thing, but it can find the patterns that it's hard for us to find. So it can really solve many problems just because it can search for those.
Just the correlations between,
It can go faster. Yeah. I think it can process the data faster and relate the data faster. I mean, I think a lot of those problems the humans can solve, because we've been solving problems since, you look at some of the things that with metals or with elements or even with neutrons, protons, and electrons that were solved before there was even electricity, for example. I just think it takes longer for us to solve it, but eventually we would get there. It's almost like, the AI search engine can do it in a couple of seconds, where if we read through the entire internet, it may take us years, but we'd eventually get there.
I remember watching on YouTube some conference, and I don't remember who it was, but he said that it wasn't AI, but he said he was saying, talking about how we create software, and he said that we're not producing software, because the production part of software, we have it perfectly. This one we solve, and it's solved perfectly, because producing software is basically distributing the executables. Yeah, so it's like, in the past it was like DVDs that you were selling, and now you have online libraries when you download it. So this is a production, putting it there. But what we're really doing as a developers is creative work. Yeah, it was about estimating and other things. It was like we have problems with estimations because every time we need to estimate something, it's something new for us. So we don't know, because if we know it, then what's the point of writing it? Then it means somebody already wrote it, and you just take this thing. That was what he said. And now we have AI, which and this human behavior, where many people are just inventing or doing exactly the same thing many times. And with AI can find it, can find this pattern, and can just give you the answer. So it can take away this part of the job where we are creative, but we are repeating something that something else already did, which is scary, because then it's not leaving much space for us to be creative, because you need to be really, really creative. If your creativity is the same, like 500 people, other 500 people that were creative in the same way, then AI will find it.
You'll have to become better, Kris. That's something you and I were talking about earlier, speaking about with the 2024 Wave 1 release that was released yesterday, and a lot of the tools that they've added. You'll have to become better. People will just have to become better, and you kind of alluded to that as well. This is a lot of interesting thoughts, to look at AI and to look at some of the points that you brought. It's a eye-opening way to think of things and to look at things, because the perspective that you just presented does make you think and wonder, where does that circle or where does that pattern break, or where does it end, or how do you step out of that pattern?
We need to learn how to use AI, how to ask AI for something, get the result, verify, validate the output if the result is the one that we want, and then just apply it to the real life scenario, to this case that we are solving. Yeah. So it's like asking the idealist for me, collect the output and just execute the result. So
that's great.
That's probably where we're going.
Well, AZ, I'm not going to try to say your name. I can say Andre, but yeah. But almost. AZ, I know is what you go by. I would like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I also want to thank you for creating a great extension that has saved me much time, but I still have to work more now that you just pointed that out to me. So it really hasn't saved me anything. You helped my output increase.
Get paid the same.
But no, I do thank you for creating a great tool. I find it very useful. And also thank you for explaining where it came from and how you did it, and sharing that with us and with everybody else. And with that, if anybody had some follow-up questions or would like to contact you about the AZ ALDEV Tools, or maybe even talk about some discussions on AI, what is the best way for someone to get in contact with you or to see some of the other great things that you have done?
So probably the best, you can go to the GitHub, and if you want to change, and if you have a bug, if you want some new functionality, you have an idea what would be great to have, then you can just go there and create an issue in the repository. Then I will take a look at it. You can try to find me on LinkedIn and just send me a message, or on Twitter.
LinkedIn and Twitter. It seems to be where we all hang out these days, which is it's a fun little hangout. But again, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you for inviting me. That was a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrzej.
All right. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.